The smell of antiseptic clung to the air. Fluorescent lights hummed. Monitors blinked green. Amaka Okafor pressed a hand to her belly and breathed through a tightening that rolled like a fist across her abdomen. "Ma'am, you have to stay still," a nurse said gently, wheeling her through the doors marked emergency. "Baby is okay, but we need to check." Amaka nodded. She had not imagined her hours in Seoul would begin like this, alone on a gurney while her husband boarded a plane for Phuket with a woman whose perfume still haunted the taxi. Her phone vibrated. A message glowed on the cracked screen. "Don't call me. You'll be fine. The card has limits." Then, "I deserve this vacation. Stop embarrassing me. Welcome to Munlyt Stories, where moonlight meets myth. Love timeless tales." Then hit like, subscribe. Please tell us in the comment where you are watching from, and please join the circle. Every story begins with you. The nurse tucked the phone into Amaka's bag as the doors swung open and a tall man in navy scrubs stepped in, calm and steady. "Dr. Kong Hyun-woo," he said in precise English, meeting her gaze. "You're Amaka?" "Yes," she managed. "We'll keep you and your child safe." His hands were warm and careful. "How far along?" 32 weeks. He nodded, scanning her vitals, then addressed the team in Korean. Orders skimmed the air. Ultrasound. Cool gel. A heartbeat filled the room. Swift, stubborn, alive. She didn't realize she was crying until a tissue appeared. "Sorry," she whispered. "Don't apologize for being human." Dr. Kang's voice softened. Braxton Hicks mixed with stress. "We'll hydrate, monitor, and run labs. Has your partner been contacted for consent forms?" Amaka's laugh escaped like a blade. "He left me." Silence rang, brief. Dr. Kang's eyes narrowed, not pity, calculation. "Then we proceed under emergency consent." He signed. "Nurse Kim, ensure billing holds nothing." The word billing made Amaka flinch. "Doctor, I can." "You can focus on breathing," he said. "We'll discuss costs after stabilization." Time stretched, measured by beeps and the rustle of curtains. Spring rain hurled itself at Seoul in silver sheets. When the cramps ebbed, fatigue settled like wet wool. The nurse slipped a blanket over her legs. The ultrasound tech squeezed her shoulder before leaving. People here were efficient but not unkind, a mercy she hadn't expected. Dr. Kong returned with a clipboard and a cup of warm water. "Sip. Small." He watched until she did. "Your labs are reassuring. I'll admit you for observation tonight." "Thank you," she said, and meant more than the words could carry. He hesitated. "Do you have anyone to call?" Memories answered. Lagos nights, apologies turned threats, a suitcase hidden behind a wardrobe. "No." He set the cup down. "Then tonight will be enough." He wrote his extension on a card and placed it by her pillow. "If something hurts, or if loneliness does, press the button." Thunder rolled. Amaka stared at the card until the letters blurred. For the first time in months, the fear inside her loosened a fraction. The doctor had said we. In this humming room, far from everything she'd known, we felt like the first stitch of home. Morning crept into the hospital room, filtered through pale curtains that did little to soften the hum of machines. Amaka stirred, blinking at the ceiling as the night's exhaustion slowly gave way to the weight of reality. Her hand drifted instinctively to her belly. A D's shifted beneath her palm, as if to remind her that she was not entirely alone. The door opened with a quiet click. Dr. Kong Hyun-woo entered, white coat crisp, stethoscope slung across his shoulders. His expression was as controlled as yesterday's, professional, detached, but his eyes softened when they met hers. "You rested?" he asked. "As much as anyone can in a hospital," Amaka replied, forcing a faint smile. He nodded, checking the chart at the end of her bed. "The baby's heartbeat is steady. Your contractions have calmed. Hydration and rest helped." He paused, then added, "But stress remains a trigger. You must avoid it." Amaka laughed bitterly. "Avoiding stress? Doctor, I married stress." For a moment, the corners of his mouth twitched as if he might smile. Instead, he slipped the pen back into his pocket. "Stress is treatable. Neglect is not." His tone carried something sharper than medical concern. As if summoned, Amaka's phone buzzed on the bedside table. She hesitated before picking it up. Another message from Chaik. "Send me your hospital papers." I'll forward them to my assistant. She'll see what's necessary. Another line followed almost instantly. Don't cause problems. I can't cancel my trip. Her throat tightened. The audacity was familiar, almost rehearsed. She could see him now, boarding pass in one hand, mistress in the other, barely glancing at his phone as he typed commands that reduced her life to a transaction. Bad news? Dr. Kong asked without looking up from the chart. She swallowed. Husband? He says he'll arrange something. The doctor's gaze flicked to her, cool and precise. Will he come? No, she admitted. Her voice cracked on the word. He set the chart aside, his movements controlled. Then I will have our finance office mark this case under special support. You'll not be discharged until it's safe. Her eyes widened. Doctor, I can't accept that, it's too much. This isn't choice. His voice was firm, final. It's protocol when a patient is abandoned. Abandoned. The word cut, but it was true. She felt her chest tighten, her pride fighting the need to surrender. Yet beneath it all was a flicker of something steadier, a lifeline she hadn't expected in this foreign city. He scribbled something on the clipboard before stepping closer. You are stronger than your circumstances. I can see that. But strength doesn't mean you endure cruelty alone. Amaka held his gaze, startled by the certainty in his tone. For months she had been made to feel small, weak, a burden. Yet this man, who knew her less than a day, spoke as though he saw past the broken pieces. She whispered, almost to herself, what if I don't know how to start again? Dr. Kong straightened, his voice steady. Then we begin here. One step. One day. Until you do. And for the first time, she wondered if survival might not be her only future, if perhaps there was life waiting beyond survival. By the third day, Amaka had grown used to the rhythm of the hospital, the gentle knock of nurses, the steady beep of monitors, the scent of disinfectant that clung to her clothes. She was calmer now, though the heaviness in her chest lingered. She hadn't heard her husband's voice since the night he left. Only curt text messages, each one colder than the last. That morning, while she was sipping the weak tea a nurse had brought, the door swung open without warning. A woman glided in, dressed in designer silk, her hair pinned into an immaculate bun that looked more suited for a gala than a hospital visit. Her lips curved into a practiced smile, but her eyes gleamed with disdain. You must be Amaka, the woman said in accented English, voice smooth as glass. I am Sujin. Amaka's fingers tightened around the paper cup. She didn't need an introduction. Every whispered phone call, every late-night business trip Chai claimed to take had carried the shadow of this woman. The mistress. Sujin's gaze flicked to Amaka's belly, then back to her face with faint amusement. Chai sends his regards. He asked me to ensure you are comfortable. Heat flared in Amaka's chest. Comfortable? Abandoned? Pregnant? Stranded in a foreign hospital? Was this comfort? Her lips trembled, but she steadied her voice. Comfortable would have been him staying. Sujin laughed softly, like the sound of ice cracking. You should not take it so personally. Men like Chaik, they are ambitious. They need freedom. You, on the other hand, look better suited to domestic life. Perhaps this arrangement is best. The insult landed like a slap. Amaka felt her stomach twist, anger surging alongside shame. But before she could speak, the door opened again. Dr. Kong entered, clipboard in hand. His eyes shifted from Amaka's tense posture to the stranger in silk. You are. Sujin's smile widened. Friend of the family. His expression didn't change. Family is usually present to sign forms. Are you authorized? The question sliced the air. Sujin faltered, then smoothed her expression. Not exactly. Then this room is for patients only, Dr. Kong said curtly. You can wait outside. Something flickered across Sujin's face. Annoyance, maybe surprise at being dismissed so quickly. But she adjusted her bag on her shoulder and leaned closer to Amaka. Remember, dear, you are replaceable. Some men never come back. Then she swept out, perfume trailing behind like poison. Amaka stared at the door, her hands trembling. Tears pricked at her eyes, not from weakness but from the cruel confirmation that her marriage had been a lie all along. Dr. Kong set the clipboard aside, his jaw tight. She won't bother you again. But Amaka wasn't sure. The words Sujin left behind echoed louder than the monitor's beeps. Replaceable. Forgotten. Still, when Dr. Kong placed a firm hand on the bed rail and said quietly, "You are not alone here," something inside her steadied. Maybe, just maybe, she wasn't as replaceable as they wanted her to believe. The rain had stopped by evening, leaving soul slick and glittering under neon lights. From her hospital bed, Amaka could see the reflections on the wet pavement through the window. The city moved on, oblivious to the storm inside her chest. She clutched her phone, debating whether to call home in Lagos. Her mother would worry, her father would fume, and her sisters would argue about what should be done. But what could they do, oceans away? All she had here was her unborn child, and the doctor who had been more present in 3 days than her husband had been in years. Her phone buzzed again. Another message from Chaik. "I heard Sujin visited. Don't cause drama. Focus on your health. I'll return when my schedule allows. Expenses will be handled." Handled! The word made her chest burn. To him, her pregnancy, her body, even her survival was just another expense to be filed away. She pressed the phone to her stomach. "Adiz, you deserve more than this," she whispered, voice cracking. A knock interrupted. Dr. Kong stepped in, his usual calm presence filling the room. "Your blood pressure is still high," he said, scanning the monitor. "Stress again." Amaka hesitated, then pushed the phone across the bed toward him. "You tell me." He glanced at the screen, his jaw tightening. For a moment, his professional mask slipped, revealing a flicker of anger. "This is neglect." His voice was low, almost dangerous. A husband abandoning his pregnant wife in crisis is unforgivable. Amaka's throat tightened. Back home, people would say I should endure. For the child's sake. For appearances. Divorce is shameful. Dr. Kong pulled the visitor's chair closer, sitting with an ease that made his words feel heavier. "And staying with a man who breaks you, is that honorable?" Her eyes stung. "I don't know how to leave." "Then perhaps," he said, measured but firm, "it's time you learn." The weight of his words settled between them. For years she had been told endurance was her duty. But in this sterile room, beneath the watchful gaze of a stranger who treated her life as valuable, the idea of leaving didn't sound like rebellion. It sounded like survival. Silence stretched until a sudden contraction gripped her abdomen, sharp enough to make her gasp. Dr. Khan was on his feet instantly, pressing the call button. Nurses hurried in. He guided her through breathing, his steady voice anchoring her as the wave passed. When it eased, Amaka sagged against the pillows, trembling but safe. Dr. Kong adjusted her blanket, his tone gentler now. "You are stronger than you think. Don't let him make you forget that." She closed her eyes, clutching the card he had left by her pillow days ago, his extension written in neat script. For the first time in years, she wondered if strength could mean walking away instead of holding on. And as the city lights blinked beyond the glass, a fracture appeared in the chains that bound her, a crack wide enough for hope to slip through. The next morning dawned crisp, sunlight spilling across the white hospital walls. Amaka woke to the sound of her nurse setting down a tray, rice porridge, soup, and a side of fruit. She tried to eat, but each swallow felt heavy, her thoughts anchored by the phone resting near her pillow. Another message had arrived during the night. "Lawyer will send you papers. Sign them. Don't delay. I'll manage custody later. Focus on being grateful." Amaka read it twice, disbelief turning to fury. Custody. He spoke of her child, as though she were an object to be managed. Her grip on the phone tightened until her knuckles ached. The door opened. Dr. Kong entered with his clipboard, scanning her vitals before speaking. "Your numbers are better. Rest is working." Then he caught the storm in her eyes. "But something else isn't." Without a word, she handed him the phone. He read the message, his jaw stiffening, eyes cold. "He threatens custody." "Yes." Her voice shook, equal parts anger and fear. "He wants to take Adiz from me." Dr. Kong set the phone down carefully, though his fingers flexed as if resisting the urge to crush it. "Do you have legal counsel here?" Amaka shook her head. "I have no one. No money. He controls everything." Dr. Kong leaned forward, his gaze steady. "Then you'll need someone who cannot be bought. I know a lawyer, specializes in family law, divorce, and custody. If you'll allow me, I'll arrange a consultation." Tears welled in her eyes. "Why are you helping me?" You don't even know me. For the first time, his stern expression softened. Because I know what it looks like when a man abuses power. My mother endured it until it killed her. I swore I'd never watch it happen again. The room fell silent, the weight of his confession pressing between them. Amaka swallowed hard, touched not only by his willingness to help but by the pain he had revealed. I don't want pity, she whispered. You don't have pity, he replied firmly. You have an ally. A knock interrupted. A nurse entered, handing Dr. Kong a folder. He flipped through it, then passed it to Amaka. Inside were documents in both Korean and English. Hospital social services, he explained. They can protect patients like you, women abandoned during pregnancy, foreign nationals needing support. It's not perfect, but it gives you leverage. Amaka traced the bold headings with trembling fingers. For the first time, the fight didn't seem impossible. And if I sign these, then you'll have standing, he said. Enough to make sure no court hands your daughter to a man like him. Her throat tightened. She thought of all the years she had bowed to Chaik's demands, silenced her dreams, swallowed her anger. And here was a chance, not just to survive, but to reclaim her life. She looked up, meeting Dr. Kang's gaze. Arrange the lawyer. I'm ready. For the first time, the word ready didn't feel like surrender. It felt like a promise. Amaka sat in the consultation room, her hands folded tightly in her lap. The space was quiet, decorated with simple chairs and a small table, but her heart thundered as if she were standing in a courtroom already. Beside her sat Dr. Kong, his presence steady, an anchor against the storm. The door opened, and a tall man with silver-rimmed glasses entered, bowing politely. I'm Attorney Park Jun-seo. Dr. Kong speaks highly of you. Amaka rose slightly, bowing in return. Thank you for coming. He smiled gently. It's my job, and my calling. Let's begin. He spread papers across the table, his tone calm but direct. You want a divorce. You also want custody. Is that correct? Her chest tightened at the words. Divorce. Custody. They felt heavier spoken aloud, as though they carved a new path that could never be reversed. She nodded. Yes. Your husband's abandonment is clear, Park continued. We'll need documentation. Messages, receipts, witness statements. Every detail matters. Do you have proof? Amaka hesitated, then unlocked her phone, sliding it across the table. Years of texts, bank transfers he forced me to send, even recordings of his shouting. Her voice shook, but she lifted her chin. I kept them all. Park scanned the messages quickly, his brows knitting. This is more than enough. With these, we can establish abuse, neglect, and financial manipulation. Custody will be in your favor. Relief flickered, quickly chased by fear. But he's powerful back in Lagos. He has friends, connections. He'll try to destroy me. Dr. Kong leaned forward, his voice firm. And here, he has nothing. Let him fight shadows in Nigeria. In Korea, the law is on your side. Before Amaka could respond, the door burst open. Chaik strode in, expensive cologne filling the room before his voice did. His shirt was wrinkled, his tie loose, but his arrogance carried him like a crown. So this is where my wife hides, he sneered, glaring at Dr. Kong. And this is the man poisoning her against me? Amaka froze. Her body remembered too well the sharp tone, the veiled threats. But she forced herself to stay seated, fists clenched in her lap. Attorney Park didn't flinch. Mr. Okafor, this is a legal consultation. You have no right to be here without invitation. Chaik barked a laugh. She is my wife, my property, my child. Everything she has belongs to me. The words cracked something inside Amaka. She stood abruptly, voice trembling but loud. I am not your property, Chaik. Not anymore. Silence fell. Even Chaik blinked, stunned that she had spoken back. Dr. Kong rose slowly, his voice calm but sharp as a blade. You abandoned her in my hospital. You left her and your child to die. That is not property, that is cruelty. Chaik's jaw worked, rage flashing in his eyes. But Attorney Park slid a document across the table. Mr. Okafor, consider this your notice. Divorce proceedings have begun. The arrogance slipped for a moment, replaced by disbelief. Amaka met his gaze, steady for the first time in years. And in that moment, The chains that had bound her cracked wide open. Chaik's face darkened as he stared at the papers Attorney Park lay before him. His hands trembled, though he quickly masked it with a sneer. You think you can win against me? Amaka, you've always been foolish. Without me, you are nothing. Who will believe you in this foreign country? Amaka's pulse raced, but she forced her voice to hold steady. I don't need belief, Chaik. I have proof. She gestured toward her phone, where years of messages and transactions lived like scars etched in glass. Every word you sent, every time you left me in fear, I kept them all. Chaik's jaw tightened. You wouldn't dare. Before she could answer, Dr. Kong spoke, his voice low and precise. She already has. And if you raise your voice in my hospital again, I'll have security escort you out. For a moment, Chaik faltered, clearly unused to being challenged by another man. His eyes swept the room, landing on Sue Jean, who had quietly slipped in behind him. Her expression was cool, detached, as though this chaos amused her. Appa, she said lightly, using the Korean term with deliberate sweetness. Don't waste time with this drama. We have a flight to catch. Let her rot in court if she wants. Amaka's stomach twisted. Appa. The endearment felt like a knife, proof of how easily Chaik had replaced her. Yet, as Sujin's words hung in the air, she caught something else in patience. A mistress already tiring of the game. Chaik turned sharply to her. You said you'd stand with me. Sujin smirked. I said I'd stand with wealth. Lose that, and you lose me. Her gaze slid to Amaka. Men like him never last long. Remember that. With that, she swept out, heels clicking against the polished floor. The silence she left behind was deafening. Chaik's face flushed crimson. You think this changes anything? He spat, pointing at Amaka. You will regret this. No one walks away from me. Attorney Park stood, gathering the documents calmly. On the contrary, Mr. Okafor, many women walk away from men like you. And in Korea, the law ensures they can. He handed Amaka a pen. Sign here to confirm filing. Her hand shook as she took the pen. For a moment, she saw every night she had swallowed her words, every bruise hidden with makeup, every apology that meant nothing. And then she signed, one stroke after another, carving her freedom into paper. Chaik lunged forward, but Dr. Kong stepped between them, his presence firm, immovable. Leave. Now. Or I will call security. For the first time, Chaik hesitated, his arrogance faltering against the doctor's unwavering calm. With a final glare at Amaka, he stormed out, the door slamming behind him. Amaka collapsed back into her chair, tears streaming down her cheeks, not of fear but of release. Dr. Kong crouched beside her, voice gentle. It begins now. The end of him. The beginning of you. And for the first time, Amaka believed him. The hospital ward felt quieter after Chaik's departure, as though the walls themselves exhaled. Amaka sat in silence, the signed papers resting on the table like a declaration of war. Her hands trembled, but this time it wasn't weakness. It was adrenaline, the first taste of freedom after years of captivity. Attorney Park gathered the documents neatly into his leather briefcase. This will move quickly, he assured her. Given the evidence, the court will side with you. Custody, divorce, even financial restitution are all possible. Amaka's voice wavered. Do you think they'll believe me? That I'm not just another wife making accusations? Park looked at her firmly. The evidence speaks louder than fear. And you have witnesses. Dr. Kang's testimony alone carries weight. Her eyes flicked to the doctor, who stood by the window, his profile cut against the pale morning light. He hadn't spoken much since Chaik stormed out, but his presence had been unwavering, a shield she hadn't known she needed. Thank you, she said softly, her gaze lingering on him. He turned, meeting her eyes. Don't thank me yet. This fight won't be easy. Men like him don't let go quietly. The truth of his words struck her, but instead of dread, she felt resolve building. She had already taken the first step. There was no turning back now. Later that afternoon, as the hospital quieted, Amaka walked slowly through the corridor, her hand supporting her belly. She paused near the lobby, watching families come and go, children clinging to parents, husbands carrying flowers, wives holding bags of food. A pang of grief struck her. She had wanted that once. A simple life, a safe home. But her reality had been shackles. Amaka! She turned. Dr. Kong stood a few feet away, his expression unreadable. He gestured toward the benches lining the wall. Sit before you strain yourself. She obeyed, lowering herself carefully. He sat beside her, leaving just enough space for comfort. For a while, they watched the revolving door as strangers came and went. Finally, he spoke. Why did you endure for so long? Her throat tightened. Because I thought endurance was love. Because everyone told me a woman must sacrifice. That if I left, I'd bring shame to my family. Her voice cracked. And because I was afraid, he made sure of it. Dr. Kang's jaw tightened. Love is not fear. And sacrifice without respect is slavery. His words struck deep, resonating with truths she had never dared name. She blinked back tears, realizing that this man, a stranger from a different world, understood her pain better than the one who had vowed to love her. Do you regret it? He asked softly. She shook her head. No, because Adiz came from it, and she's worth everything. For a moment, his gaze softened, lingering on her with something almost tender. Then he stood, clearing his throat. Rest. Tomorrow we'll plan your next steps. As he walked away, Amaka pressed her hands against her belly. For the first time, the chains around her heart felt broken. What lay ahead was uncertain, but she knew one truth. She would never bow again. Thank you so much for staying with us till this very point in the story. If you're enjoying it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear the lessons you learned from this story and your thoughts on how we can keep improving to bring you the very best. The hospital's fluorescent lights dimmed to evening mode, bathing the ward in a softer glow. Amaka sat upright in bed, staring at the legal documents neatly tucked into the folder on her nightstand. Signing her name had felt like crossing a river she could never return from. Yet even with the paper secured, fear whispered at the edges of her mind. Her phone vibrated again. She hesitated, then unlocked it. A voice note from Chaik. His voice, deep and sharp, spilled through the speaker. You think you're clever, embarrassing me in front of strangers? Don't forget who made you, Amaka. Without me, you'd still be nothing. This doctor won't protect you forever. Wait until I'm back. Her stomach churned. The venom in his tone was familiar, each word designed to shrink her into silence. 4 years, she had obeyed, believed, endured. Now, the threat clung to her like smoke, but it no longer suffocated her. She deleted the message. Moments later, Dr. Kong entered with a file in hand. His sharp gaze caught the tension in her shoulders. Another message. She nodded. Threats. The same as always. Save them, he instructed firmly. Every word is evidence. Don't erase your weapons. Her lips parted. Weapons. Yes, he said, setting the file on her bedside. You are at war, Amaka. And in war, every word he sends is ammunition against him. She studied him, struck by the certainty in his tone. Do you always fight for strangers this way? His jaw tightened, a shadow passing across his eyes. Not always, but I recognize the look in your eyes. My mother had it too. Her breath caught. Your mother. She endured my father's temper until it killed her spirit, he said quietly. By the time she found the courage to leave, it was too late. I was 13. He paused, gaze distant. That's why I became a doctor. To save people when no one else would. Amaka's heart ached. She had wondered why this man, who owed her nothing, stood by her side with such fierce conviction. Now she understood. His fight for her was also a fight against ghosts of his past. I'm sorry, she whispered. Don't be, he replied. His eyes softened, a flicker of warmth piercing through his steel exterior. Just promise me you'll never let him break you again. A lump rose in her throat. She pressed her hand to her belly, where Adiz shifted. For her I won't. For the first time, Dr. Kong smiled faintly, the expression rare and disarming. Good. Then we're on the same side. As night deepened, Amaka lay awake, listening to the rhythmic beeping of the monitor. The fear still echoed in her chest, but alongside it was something new resolve. She wasn't just surviving anymore. She was preparing for battle. And this time, she wasn't alone. The courtroom smelled faintly of polished wood and nerves. Though it was only a preliminary hearing, the tension pressed down like a storm cloud. Amaka sat beside Attorney Park, her hands folded tightly on the table. Her belly was round now, a ease shifting within, as if aware of the battle her mother was fighting. Across the room, Chaik lounged in his seat with arrogant ease, a smirk curling his lips. He wore an expensive suit, but his eyes burned with fury. Every so often, he tapped his phone, as though the act itself proved his power. The judge entered, and all rose. When they were seated again, Attorney Park stood. "Your Honor, my client, Mrs. Amaka Okafor, has been subjected to abandonment, abuse, and financial neglect. We are seeking immediate protective measures, as well as custody assurances, until the final hearing." The words struck Amaka like stones thrown into a pond, rippling, undeniable truths spoken aloud in front of strangers. Her face warmed, but she forced herself to sit tall. Chaik's lawyer rose, his tone slick and dismissive. "Your Honor, my client contests these accusations. Mrs. Okafor is emotionally unstable, overwhelmed by pregnancy, and influenced by outside parties, including Dr. Kong Hyunwoo, who has entangled himself in this matter improperly." Murmurs rustled through the room. Amaka's chest tightened, but before the judge could respond, Dr. Kong himself stood from the gallery. "Calm, steady," he bowed. "Your Honor, I am her attending physician. I intervened only when her life, and her child's, were at risk. That is my duty as a doctor, not as a man with ulterior motives." The judge regarded him coolly. "Noted, doctor." "Sit down." Chaik leaned forward suddenly, his voice breaking through decorum. "She belongs to me. I paid for her flights, her clothes, everything. She wouldn't survive a day without me. How can she raise a child?" The judge's gavel struck sharply. "Order!" But Chaik wasn't finished. He turned, glaring at Amaka with venom. "You think you can live without me? You'll starve. You'll crawl back." Amaka's pulse raced, but something within her snapped. She rose slowly, her chair scraping the floor, and faced him across the courtroom. Her voice trembled at first, but gained strength with every word. "I would rather starve free than feast in chains. You abandoned me when I needed you most. You left our child for a vacation. You broke every vow you ever made. And now you will not break me." The room fell silent. Even the judge leaned forward slightly, the weight of her declaration hanging in the air. Attorney Park placed a reassuring hand on her arm and addressed the court. "Your Honor, let this moment stand as testimony. Mrs. Okafor is not unstable, she is courageous." The judge scribbled notes, then spoke firmly. "Protective measures will be granted. Custody will remain with the mother pending final review." Relief flooded Amaka's chest. Chaik slumped back in his chair, fury barely contained. For the first time in years, she had drawn a line in the sand, and the law had stood behind her. The gavel's echo still lingered in Amaka's ears long after the judge dismissed the session. Protective measures granted. Custody secured, at least for now. Relief coursed through her, yet it was chased by the knowledge that this battle was only beginning. Outside the courtroom, reporters had already gathered. Flashes burst like fireworks as Chaik strutted past them, his mask of arrogance barely intact. His lawyer whispered urgently, but Chaik brushed him off, shouting for the cameras, "This is nothing. My wife has been misled. She will come back to me. She always does." The lie stung, but Amaka refused to flinch. With Attorney Park shielding her from the chaos, she followed him toward the waiting car. Dr. Khan was already there, his expression unreadable but his eyes scanning every corner, every face, as though he expected danger. When the door closed behind her, shutting out the reporter's questions, Amaka exhaled shakily. "He won't stop," she whispered. "No," Dr. Kong agreed, "but now he's desperate. Desperation makes men reckless and weak." His certainty steadied her, though fear still coiled in her chest. She rested her hand on her belly, whispering silently to Adiz, "We are safe. We will be safe." Back at the hospital, Amaka was escorted to a private ward under the court's protection order. For the first time, she didn't feel like a patient. She felt like someone worth defending. The nurses treated her with quiet respect, their voices carrying admiration. News had spread quickly about the Nigerian woman who had stood in court against her husband's arrogance and refused to bow. That evening, while she walked the corridor slowly for exercise, she overheard two interns whispering. "Did you see her? The one Dr. Kong protects. They say her husband left her in the R. Who does that? Still she's strong. I'd have collapsed." Amaka's steps faltered, heat rising to her cheeks. She wasn't used to admiration. For so long, she had been the woman who endured in silence. Now, she was becoming someone else entirely, someone people noticed. Later, Dr. Kong found her by the window, gazing at the city lights. "You walked farther today," he observed. She smiled faintly. "I feel lighter. Not in my body, but here." She tapped her chest. He studied her for a long moment before speaking. "The court saw your strength, but you must hold it. This is not just about winning papers. It is about reclaiming yourself." His words resonated, stirring something fierce within her. "For years, I thought silence was survival," she admitted. "But today, when I spoke in that courtroom, I felt free." For the first time, he allowed a small smile. "Then keep speaking. The world is finally listening." As she looked at him, steady and unwavering beside her, Amaka realized that freedom was no longer a distant dream. The cracks in Chaik's throne were spreading, and with each one, her own strength shone brighter. And soon, she would not just survive. She would reign over her own life. The news spread faster than Amaka could have imagined. By morning, Seoul's tabloids carried headlines splashed across their pages. Nigerian woman wins protective order against husband. Chaebol doctor steps in as unexpected ally. Photographs from outside the courthouse circulated online, her face tense but unbowed, Dr. Kong at her side like a silent guardian. Amaka scrolled through them on her phone, torn between embarrassment and awe. For the first time, the world saw her not as Chaik's shadow but as herself. Meanwhile, Chaik was unraveling. In the suite he had rented with Soo Jin, arguments erupted like daily thunderstorms. His phone buzzed endlessly with calls from Nigeria, business partners demanding answers, investors wary of scandal. He tried to drown them out with alcohol, with bravado, with Soo Jin's shallow reassurances. But cracks widened quickly. "You promised me luxury," Soo Jin snapped one evening, throwing a designer handbag onto the bed. "Now all I see are reporters and angry men calling at midnight. This is not the life I signed up for." Chaik grabbed her wrist, voice low with menace. "You'll stay. I made you." She yanked free, eyes glittering with contempt. "You didn't make me, Chaik. You rented me. And when the money dries up, so does my loyalty." She slammed the door behind her, leaving him shouting into the empty suite. Back at the hospital, Amaka's strength grew daily. She attended counseling sessions arranged by Attorney Park, where she learned to name the abuse for what it was. No longer just scars, but evidence. No longer shame, but truth. Each session chipped away at the fear that had ruled her for years. One afternoon, she joined Dr. Kong in the hospital garden. The autumn air was crisp, the trees painted gold and crimson. For the first time, she felt her lungs expand without dread pressing them down. "How are you holding up?" he asked, his hands folded behind his back. "Better," she admitted. "For the first time, I don't wake up afraid of the day ahead. I wake up curious. That's new for me." He glanced at her, his eyes softening. "That's good. Curiosity is the first step toward hope." Amaka smiled faintly. "Do you ever wonder why you keep helping me? Beyond duty, I mean." He was silent for a long moment before answering. "Because you remind me that survival is not enough. My mother never found her way out. But you are proving that it's possible." His words settled in her chest like a promise. She realized then that she wasn't just healing for herself or her child. Her defiance was rewriting stories, even his. That night, as she lay in bed, her phone buzzed once more. A message from an unknown number. "He's losing everything. Investors are pulling out. The mistress is gone. He's spiraling. Be careful." Amaka stared at the screen, her heartbeat steady. For years, Chaik's downfall had been her secret prayer. Now it was beginning. And this time, she wasn't afraid to watch him fall. Chaik's empire collapsed faster than he could rebuild his lies. Calls from Lagos no longer came with respect, only fury. His business partners accused him of fraud, of siphoning money into personal accounts. His mistress had vanished, his investors were withdrawing, and the court in Seoul had frozen assets tied to his name. He sat in the hotel suite, curtains drawn against the daylight, a bottle of whiskey half empty on the table. His once pristine suit hung wrinkled on his shoulders. For the first time in years, he looked less like the untouchable man Amaka had feared and more like a cornered animal. Meanwhile, Amaka's world shifted in the opposite direction. At the hospital, she began light administrative work under Dr. Kang's supervision, entering patient records, helping in reception, shadowing the nursing staff to learn procedures. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers. "You're adapting well," Dr. Kang said one afternoon, watching her type with careful precision. Amaka looked up, a shy smile tugging her lips. "It feels strange. I've spent years being told I couldn't do anything without him. And now, every small task feels like proof that he was wrong." Dr. Kang's gaze softened. "He was wrong about many things. But you," he hesitated, then finished quietly, "you were never weak." The words warmed her, though she quickly returned her focus to the computer, afraid her blush would betray her. Across town, Chaik was not done scheming. He stormed into Attorney Park's office unannounced, slamming his palms onto the polished desk. "This divorce, this custody, none of it will stand. I'll drag her back to Nigeria where she belongs." Attorney Park didn't flinch. He slid a file across the desk. "Evidence has already been filed with both Korean and Nigerian authorities. You'll find extradition difficult. And as for custody, your record speaks for itself." Chaik's nostrils flared. "You think she can live without me? She's nothing without my money." Park leaned back, his expression calm but edged with disdain. "She already is. And soon, you'll be nothing without hers." The words hit harder than Chaik admitted. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. That evening, Amaka sat in the hospital's rooftop garden with Dr. Kang. The city stretched below them, alive with neon and movement. She rested her hands on her belly, feeling Adi's faint kicks. "She's strong," Amaka whispered. "Like her mother," Dr. Kang replied. Amaka turned her face toward him. "Do you really believe I'll win this?" He met her gaze, unwavering. "You've already won, Amaka. The moment you stopped fearing him, he lost." Her throat tightened. For so long, victory had seemed impossible. Yet here she was, building a life piece by piece while the man who once held her captive drowned in the ashes of his power. As the night air wrapped around them, she realized the truth. Freedom wasn't waiting for a court ruling. Freedom was already hers. And no one, not even Chaik, could take it back. The hospital cafeteria buzzed with the usual mid-morning chatter, nurses grabbing coffee, interns poring over notes. Amaka sat at a corner table, nibbling at a croissant while reviewing the forms Dr. Kang had asked her to sort. Her growing belly rested against the table, Adi's shifting with small, insistent kicks. Every movement reminded her why she fought. Still, the whispers had begun. She could feel them ripple whenever she walked past. "That's her, the Nigerian woman. They say Dr. Kang pays her bills. Is she really his patient, or something more?" Their voices weren't cruel, just curious, but they cut nonetheless. Amaka straightened her shoulders, forcing herself not to shrink. For too long, she had lived in shadows. This time, she wouldn't cower. Later that day, Dr. Kang found her in the corridor, her face carefully composed. "You've heard them," he said quietly. She hesitated, then nodded. "They think we're more than doctor and patient." His brow furrowed. "Does it trouble you?" "Yes," she admitted, her voice low. "Not because of what they say, but because I can't afford scandal. If the court thinks I depend on you more than myself, Chaik will twist it against me." Dr. Kang's jaw tightened, his protective instinct clear. "Then we'll make sure the court sees the truth, that you're standing on your own. I'll step back where necessary." Her chest tightened unexpectedly at the thought of him stepping back. He had become her anchor. But she forced a nod. "It's better that way." That evening, she video called her family in Lagos. Her mother's face filled the screen, lined with worry. "Amaka, are you truly safe? We hear things. Your husband is shouting everywhere that you've disgraced him." Amaka swallowed. "Mama, I'm safe. And I will not return to him. Not now, not ever." Her father's voice cut in from off-screen, firm and proud. "Then stand tall, my daughter. A lioness does not bow to jackals." The words steadied her. She ended the call with tears on her cheeks, but they were not of sorrow, they were of resolve. Meanwhile, Chaik spiraled further. Alone in his hotel, he shouted into phones, demanding loyalty from business partners who no longer answered. When reporters camped outside, he screamed at them until security dragged him back inside. His once golden name was now a scandal, and Seoul whispered of his downfall with relish. Back at the hospital, Dr. Kong found Amaka in the garden, her arms wrapped around herself as the evening chill set in. He draped his coat over her shoulders without a word. She glanced up at him, gratitude shining in her eyes. "Why do you keep standing by me, even when it puts you at risk?" He held her gaze, steady and unflinching. "Because some battles are worth fighting. And you, Amaka, you're worth more than any risk." For the first time, she let herself believe it. Not just that she could win against Chaik, but that she deserved to be fought for. The first snow of the season fell over Seoul, delicate flakes swirling past the hospital windows. Amaka watched them from her bed, her breath fogging the glass. Winter had arrived, but inside her chest was fire, anger, fear, determination, all burning at once. News from Attorney Park arrived that morning. Chaik had filed an emergency petition demanding custody of Adiz on grounds of maternal instability. The audacity of it made Amaka's blood run cold. "He has no shame," she muttered, pacing the room. "He abandoned us, and now he dares to call me unfit?" Dr. Kong listened quietly, arms crossed. When she stopped, trembling, he spoke in his calm, measured tone. "That's how men like him fight. Not with truth, but with noise. And noise is easier to defeat than substance." His certainty steadied her, but only slightly. That afternoon, Attorney Park arrived with folders of evidence. "We'll dismantle his claim. Medical records prove you've been cared for properly. Witnesses, myself, Dr. Kong, hospital staff, will testify. And his financial records are a disaster. Judges do not give children to men who gamble their fortunes." Amaka pressed her palms against her belly. "But what if the court believes him? What if they take her from me?" Dr. Kong stepped forward, his voice firm. "They won't. And even if he tries, he will have to step through me first." For a moment, silence stretched. His words weren't spoken as a doctor, but as something more, a vow. That night, Amaka couldn't sleep. Memories of Chaik flooded her mind. The slammed doors, the insults whispered like poison, the nights she lay awake wondering if she would survive his rage. Fear lingered, but alongside it came another voice, her own, rising stronger than before. "You've already faced him. You've already spoken. You will not break now." The following day brought confrontation. Chaik arrived at the hospital, ignoring the protective order. Security tried to stop him, but his voice thundered through the corridor. "Amaka, come out. You think you can shame me and get away with it." Amaka froze in her room as the shouts echoed closer. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to stand. The old Amaka would have hidden. The new Amaka refused. She opened the door, just as Dr. Kong intercepted Chaik, his frame blocking the path. "You're not allowed here," he said, voice ice cold. "This is my wife." Chaik roared. "My child." "No," Amaka said firmly, stepping into view. Her voice carried, strong enough to silence the hall. "I am not your wife, and this child is not your possession. You lost us the moment you chose yourself over us." Gasps rose from nurses and staff watching nearby. Chaik's face contorted with rage, but for once, his words failed him. Security seized the moment to escort him out, his protests echoing uselessly. Amaka sagged against the doorframe, breathless but unbroken. Dr. Kong steadied her with a hand on her arm. "You faced him," he said quietly. "And I'll keep facing him," she whispered, her voice steady. For the first time, she realized Chaik's greatest weapon, her silence, was gone. And without it, he was powerless. The hospital returned to calm after the storm of Chaik's intrusion, but Amaka knew the silence was fragile. Word spread quickly. The Nigerian husband had been dragged out by security, his threats echoing through the corridors. Nurses whispered, patients stared, but Amaka kept her head high. For the first time, she hadn't hidden. She had stood in the open and declared her freedom. That night, she sat by the window, stroking her belly. Adiz shifted beneath her touch, restless as though responding to her mother's unease. "My daughter," Amaka whispered, tears stinging her eyes, "I will never let him cage us again. You will know love, not fear. You will know laughter, not shouting. This I swear." The words weren't just comfort, they were an oath. The following morning, Attorney Park arrived with updates. "The court has escalated your case after yesterday's violation. Protective custody for you and the child will be reinforced. Chaik's petition will likely be dismissed after his behavior." Relief washed through Amaka, but she also felt the weight of exhaustion. "When will it end?" she murmured. Park gave her a sympathetic smile. "Soon. His downfall has begun. But we must keep gathering strength. Each step matters." When he left, Dr. Kong entered, holding a thermos. "Ginger tea. Helps with nausea and nerves." She accepted it gratefully, sipping slowly. "You think of everything," she said softly. He shrugged, but his gaze lingered on her. "You remind me to." There was a pause, a silence charged with something unspoken. Amaka lowered her eyes, heart fluttering in a way that startled her. She had spent years believing her heart was numb, buried under scars. Yet here, in this man's steady presence, it stirred. Later that day, she joined him during rounds, helping with simple tasks, organizing charts, guiding patients to waiting areas. Though whispers followed them, Amaka ignored them. She felt useful, capable, alive. In the afternoon, she returned to her ward to find a bouquet of wilted flowers on her bed. No note, just the acrid scent of decay. Fear prickled her skin. "Chaik!" Her hands shook as she called for the nurse, who disposed of them immediately. Dr. Kong arrived moments later, fury tightening his features. "He dares violate the order again." Amaka nodded, her voice trembling. "He wants me afraid." Dr. Kang's tone was steel. "Then give him nothing. Fear is the leash he's always used. If you cut it, he has no hold." Amaka drew a shaky breath. He was right. She could not crumble now. She had her daughter, her case, and her new strength. That night, she wrote in her journal, words steady despite her shaking hands. "I am not his victim. I am a mother. I am a survivor. And I will win." Closing the book, she felt Adi's kick again, as if in agreement. It was no longer just about leaving Chaik. It was about building a future where he no longer existed in their story. The winter wind held outside the hospital, rattling the glass panes. Inside, the ward glowed softly with lamplight, calm but watchful. Amaka lay awake, her hand stroking the curve of her belly, Adi's restless beneath her palm. Sleep had become a stranger, fear hovered even in silence. A soft knock broke her thoughts. Dr. Kong entered, a folder tucked under his arm. His eyes, sharp and attentive, scanned the room. "You're awake." "I can't rest," she admitted. "Every sound feels like him coming back." He set the folder aside and pulled the chair closer. "Security has been doubled. No one will get near you without my knowledge." His words soothed, but the shadow of doubt remained. He doesn't obey laws. Restraining orders mean nothing to men like him. Dr. Kang's expression hardened. "Then we outlast him. Every time he breaks a rule, he buries himself deeper. Let him dig." Amaka managed a faint smile. "You sound as though you've fought wars before." "I have," he said quietly. "Not in court, but in life. And the only way to win is to endure longer than your enemy." His certainty steadied her. For a moment, silence stretched, filled only by the hum of the monitor. Their eyes held, unspoken words thick between them. Amaka looked away first, her cheeks warm. The next morning, a commotion erupted in the lobby. Chaik had returned, shouting at security, demanding entry. His voice rose above the crowd, sharp and venomous. "You can't keep me from my wife and child." Nurses hurried to Amaka's room. One whispered, "Stay calm. They won't let him near you." But calm was impossible. Her heart pounded as memories crashed, doors slamming, fists pounding tables, his voice echoing in their Lagos home. Then, sudden silence. Minutes later, Dr. Kong appeared, his jaw tight, coat dusted with snow. "He's gone," he said. "What happened?" Amaka whispered. "I confronted him, reminded him of the order. He tried to strike me. Security removed him, and the police have been called. He'll spend the night in custody." Relief flooded her, followed quickly by guilt. "Because of me, you're in danger." Dr. Kong shook his head firmly. "No. Because of him, you've suffered too long. Don't carry his sins." Her throat tightened. 4 years. Chaik had convinced her that every bruise, Every insult, every abandonment was somehow her fault. Now, this man across from her dismantled that lie with simple truth. That evening, she wrote another entry in her journal. He came again, but this time I did not bow. I am not afraid of a shadow. I have light beside me now. When she closed the book, she noticed Dr. Kang's coat still draped over her chair. She pulled it around her shoulders, inhaling the faint scent of antiseptic and something warm, steady. For the first time in years, she slept deeply, her dreams free of a shadow. The morning news spread faster than whispers in a market square. Nigerian businessman arrested after assault attempt in Seoul hospital. Photos showed Chaik being dragged into a police van, his once pristine suit crumpled, his face twisted with rage. For years he had hidden behind wealth and connections. Now, the mask was torn away for the world to see. Amaka sat in her hospital bed, phone buzzing with messages from Lagos. Cousins, old friends, even estranged relatives wrote the same thing. We saw the news. We're proud of you. Her chest swelled with relief and something she hadn't felt in years. Validation. Dr. Kong entered quietly, carrying his tablet. His eyes met hers, and for once, there was the faintest curve of a smile. It's over for him, he said. Police will hold him. Immigration may even revoke his stay. Amaka exhaled shakily, pressing a hand to her belly. A D's shifted beneath her touch, as though celebrating too. So this is what freedom feels like, she whispered. Not yet, Dr. Kong corrected gently. Freedom is not just his absence. It is the life you build after. His words struck deep. She nodded slowly. Then I'll build it. For her. Meanwhile, across the city, Chaik sat slumped in a police cell, stripped of his arrogance. Calls to his lawyer went unanswered, his accounts frozen. Even in Lagos, news of his downfall spread, investors severing ties, property seized for debts long ignored. Sujin, once his trophy, had vanished completely. The empire he had flaunted crumbled to dust in his clenched fists. At the hospital, Amaka began preparing for motherhood in earnest. Nurses taught her breathing exercises, dietitians adjusted her meals, and Attorney Park arranged housing support for after delivery. For the first time, her future wasn't a fog of dread, it was a path. One evening, she sat in the rooftop garden with Dr. Kong. The city glittered below, alive with lights. Do you think people can really change? She asked quietly. He considered before answering. Change is possible, but only when the person wants it. Chaik does not want change. He wants control. And control is not love. Amaka's throat tightened. I wasted years waiting for him to change. You didn't waste them, Dr. Kong said firmly. You survived them, and survival is never wasted. She looked at him then, truly looked. His steadiness, his quiet strength, the way he spoke as though her worth was undeniable. Something unspoken stirred between them, fragile but certain. She quickly looked away, heart racing. That night, as she lay in bed, Amaka wrote in her journal, He is falling, but I am rising. Every chain he forged is broken. I am no longer his shadow, I am my own light. The breaking of Chaik was not just his ruin, it was the birth of her new beginning. The day of Adi's birth arrived with urgency. Before dawn, Amaka felt the first sharp contraction ripple through her body, a pain unlike anything she had ever known. She gripped the bedrail, whispering through clenched teeth, It's time. Nurses rushed in, their voices calm but efficient. Dr. Kong appeared moments later, coat half-buttoned, eyes sharp with focus. We're moving her to delivery. Now. The hours that followed blurred into waves of pain and determination. Sweat clung to Amaka's brow, her breath shallow, but she never let go of the thought that had carried her this far. I am free. My daughter will be born free. Dr. Kang's voice anchored her through each contraction. Steady. Breathe. You're stronger than the pain. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a sharp cry filled the room. The sound pierced the air, raw and beautiful. Tears flooded Amaka's eyes as the nurse placed the tiny, wriggling bundle on her chest. Your daughter, the nurse whispered. Amaka gazed down at Adi's, her skin soft, her fists curled, her cry strong. My baby, Amaka breathed, kissing her forehead. You're here. You're safe. Dr. Kong stood nearby, his expression unreadable at first. then softening into something almost reverent. For all the lives he had delivered into this world, this moment carried a different weight. He watched as Amaka cradled her daughter, a glow of strength radiating from her that outshone even the harsh hospital lights. When the room finally quieted, Amaka looked up, exhaustion and triumph mingling in her eyes. "She's everything I fought for." Dr. Kong nodded. "And she is proof that you won." News of the birth reached the press by evening. Photos of Amaka holding a D circulated online, accompanied by headlines. From abandonment to triumph, Nigerian woman welcomes baby girl amid legal battle. Scandal-tainted husband silent as wife finds strength in soul. Meanwhile, in his cell, Chaik saw the headlines and slammed his fists against the table. No one came to listen. No mistress to soothe him. No investors to flatter him. Just silence and the bitter truth. The world had moved on without him. Back at the hospital, Amaka began her first night as a mother. Though her body ached, she stayed awake, watching Adi's tiny chest rise and fall. She whispered promises into the stillness. "You will never know the fear I knew. You will never bow to anyone's cruelty. You will live in love, Adi's, and I will give you that love with everything I am." In the doorway, unnoticed at first, Dr. Kong stood with a quiet smile. He saw not just a patient, not just a survivor, but a woman reborn in the light of her child. For Amaka, the night felt different. It wasn't just the beginning of motherhood. It was the beginning of a life she had carved from fire and ashes. A new dawn had come, and she was ready to rise with it. 2 weeks after Adi's birth, the hospital garden was blanketed with frost, the last traces of winter lingering. Amaka sat on a bench wrapped in a thick shawl, Adi swaddled securely in her arms. The baby's soft breaths warmed her chest, each sound a melody more healing than any medicine. For the first time in years, the world felt still. No raised voice, no fear, only peace. Attorney Park joined her briefly, handing over a final folder. "The divorce is official," he said gently. "Custody is yours. Financial restitution has been granted. He has nothing left to fight with." Amaka opened the folder, eyes scanning the stamp seal. The words blurred through her tears. "It's over," she whispered. Park smiled, bowing slightly. "No, it's beginning." He excused himself, leaving her with the weight of freedom, heavy but exhilarating in her hands. Later, Dr. Kong appeared, his coat collar turned up against the cold. He sat beside her without ceremony, his gaze soft as it fell on Adi's. "She looks stronger already," he murmured. "She is," Amaka said with pride. "Stronger than I ever imagined." They sat in silence for a while, the city's skyline glowing in the distance. Finally, Amaka turned to him, her voice low. "You've done more for me than I can ever repay. You saved us." He shook his head. "No, Amaka. You saved yourself. I only stood beside you." Her eyes shimmered. "Then promise me you'll keep standing there. Not as a doctor, not as a savior, just as you." For a moment, the ever-composed Dr. Kong hesitated. Then he nodded once, firmly. "I promise." The words wrapped around her like warmth against the winter chill. Weeks later, Amaka began work officially at the hospital, no longer as a patient under care, but as a staff member. She balanced paperwork, greeted patients, and sometimes rocked Adi's. In a sling while sorting files, whispers still followed her, but this time they carried a different tone. "That's her, the one who stood up to him. She's braver than most of us. Dr. Kong trusts her." Amaka no longer shrank from the whispers. She walked taller, her smile genuine. In Lagos, Chaik's name became a cautionary tale. His businesses dissolved, his so-called friends vanished, and his mistress was rumored to have moved on to wealthier prey. He was left with nothing but his rage, a shadow of the man who once believed himself untouchable. On a bright spring morning, Amaka stood once more in the rooftop garden with Dr. Kong, Adi's cooing in her arms. Seoul stretched out before them, a city that had witnessed her lowest fall and her greatest rise. "Do you regret anything?" Dr. Kong asked quietly. She looked at her daughter, then at him. "No, because everything led me here, to freedom, to her, to this life ahead." And as the sun broke through the clouds, painting the sky in gold, Amaka knew her story was no longer about survival. It was about living, fully, freely, and without fear. Thank you so much for staying with us till the very end of the story. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment below. We'd love to hear the lessons you learned and your thoughts on how we can continue improving to give you the very best. Here at Munlyt Stories, every tale is crafted with passion, care, and dedication. Our mission is simple: to entertain, inspire, and connect us all across cultures and hearts. So, keep the conversation alive in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss a new episode. Till next time, we are Munlyt Stories, bringing you amazing tales that touch hearts and spark imaginations. Stay blessed, stay inspired. See you in the next story.